on the M-Tip podcast. We hear and glean from those who are making the impossible possible. In this episode, we are graced with the presence of Dr. Deanna Townsend Smith. Dr. Townsend Smith is a leader of great influence in the education arena. Her biography reads as a who's who with well over 20 years of service as a strategic leader, coalition builder, and expert in advancing opportunity and access within public education. She is widely recognized for her creative, results driven approaches to solving complex challenges in education, and she holds a doctorate in educational leadership, which has allowed her to effectively lead transformative efforts in North Carolina and beyond as a teacher, mentor, new teacher coach, administrator, and school turnaround expert. Dr. Townsend Smith served as Director of Board Policy and Operations for the North Carolina State Board of Education and as an Assistant Director in the North Carolina Office of Charter Schools for the state. For her contributions to education, many honors have been bestowed upon Dr. Townsend Smith. Let me list just a few. Formal resolution from the NC State Board of Education. Formal resolution from the NC Charter Schools Advisory Board, the Woman in Leadership Award, Teach for America's Legacy of Excellence Award, the Phil Freelon Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award, and the list continues. As Senior Director of the Dudley Flood Center for Educational Equity and Opportunity, she leads statewide programmatic and policy initiatives focused on improving student outcomes and increasing access to high-quality learning opportunities for not some, but all. Under her leadership, the center fosters cross-sector collaboration to create more inclusive, supportive, and effective public education systems in North Carolina. Dr. Deanna Townsend Smith, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tamara Thomas. It is so great to be with you here this morning. Thank you for having me on this morning. I appreciate that.
Oh gosh, this is a blessing. And I know even with the introduction, I had to have missed something. Is there anything you'd like to fill in?
No, I wouldn't like to fill in anything. This is work isn't about me. It is about the children of our state and the educators of our state who need us to continue to fulfill North Carolina's constitutional promise of a sound basic education for each and every child. And I've made that my mission. And so thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, this is a pleasure. And since you have opened the door, I'd love for you to go ahead and share your journey because many may not be aware of your journey to becoming the executive director of the Dudley Flood Center. And also, what motivates you most in your work around educational equity?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to begin this conversation here today. When you talk about my journey and how I got to this role, I reflect on a conversation with my grandmother when I was young, when I was going to go away to college and starting my educational endeavors at the higher ed level. She told me at that time, she's like, "You are going to be a teacher." And I looked at her and I said, "I will never, ever be a teacher." Uh, and and as um the one above would have, I ended up graduating from the North Carolina Central University, majored in recreational therapy, and ended up my first assignment was a placement in a school, all boys, learning disabilities, and behavior disorders. So that was my first assignment as a recreational therapist. At the end of that year, I went home and I told my grandmother that I think I'm going to go back to school to pursue education, and
Yes.
her only words to me were, "Mhm, is that what it is?" And so from there, went on to get my master's in education, where I taught for a number of years elementary, 2nd and 3rd grade, and began to have this passion to mentor and coach others, which ultimately led me to this space of school turnaround. Um, and then I ended up turning around a few schools here in our state. And that
Yes.
eventually ended me up in the Office of Charter Schools, where I started out as an educational consultant in the Office of Charter Schools.
Okay.
Um, and in a number of years, I matriculated up to become the associate director of that office. And then, as you said in my bio, I eventually became the director for board policy and operations for the State Board of Ed.
Yes.
On that journey, um, along the way, had the privilege and honor of meeting Dr. Dudley Flood. Um,
Yes.
and he would come and speak to the board on critical issues concerning education because of his work in with desegregation here in our state. And so given his, experience, etcetera, just began to, foster, communication with him here or there to help me with a few things with the State Board of Education office. And then ultimately, the call came to be the inaugural director for
Yes.
the Dudley Flood Center. And while I hesitated at first, at a certain point, you heed the call when Dr. Flood calls, and so
Correct. That's correct. 'Cause we had him on an episode recently. So when he calls, you definitely answer.
right. And so that's ultimately what landed me here. I think my path was always laid. I've always fought for opportunity and access for each and every child, and so given that I am Robinson County born and bred. That's a Leandro district, and so I've
Mm.
always fought for making sure that the least of those had what they need, because when they have what they need, that takes care of what everyone needs ultimately at the
Yeah.
end of the day, and so,
Right.
that's what landed me at the flood center.
Look at that. Well, for our listeners who may not be familiar, what is the actual mission of the Dudley Flood Center? And how does the Color of Education Summit fit into that mission?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When I think about the vision, the mission of the flood center, there are a lot
Yes.
of words that encompass that vision and mission. But when I'm communicating to people in general, ultimately, at the end of the day, the mission, the vision of the Flood Center is to
Yes.
eradicate inequities, to provide opportunity and access for each and every child. That's what it
Mhm,
is.
mhm,
At the
mhm,
at its core, that's what we do. Uh,
mhm.
your question around how does the color of education fit into that?
Maybe we should wait for that one then. Let's wait for that one. I don't wanna jump into that one too quickly.
Uh,
Let me take a step back, right?
okay.
Because what you're discussing at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the day, it's what do our children need, no matter the hue of their skin, and how are those needs being met in the best ways possible? Because there shouldn't be any barriers for what they need. And if we look at the current landscape for K-16 education in the United States, in your view, what are the most pressing racial disparities in K-16 education right now?
I think every report that we read, no matter what the year is, the disparities don't change.
Okay.
And there are 7 key disparities that when you look at the programming for the Flood Center, we address in some way. And so
Okay.
those disparities are as follows: resegregation,
Mhm.
um, the discipline, ex- ex- exclusionary disciplinary measures. Number 2.
Yes, practice. Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm. Number 3, overrepresentation in special education.
Yes. Yeah.
Number 4 is this piece around the recruitment and retention of a diverse educator workforce.
Mhm.
Um, Number 5 is the funding that is needed to sustain our public schools, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
Number 6 deals with this piece around, we talked about funding, we talked about resegregation. Uh,
Yes.
the other piece is access to rigorous courses,
There you
because not
go.
not every child has access to rigorous courses. And then
No, and
the
that
last.
that conversation can go so much deeper.
Mhm,
If we could sit on that part all day.
mhm,
Mhm.
right.
Go ahead, yeah.
And then the last area is culturally responsive pedagogy.
Yes.
Um, and while we focus on on all of those areas, address them in some way at the Flood Center, I think critical to this work is funding. If I lift it up,
Yes.
um,
Mhm. Mm.
the diverse educator workforce is key
Yeah.
because of what the data says about that. And then funding, like those 3 things, even if we just started to attack those 3 things first, even though all 7 areas are critical, if we started to address those areas, at least at a minimum, we would begin to make progress toward ensuring that at least every child in North Carolina was making progress toward a sound basic education.
Right. 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 And the points that you make with those 7 key disparities, if we really think about it on a global district level, right? The transformation that needs to happen needs to be planned strategically. And my finding has been that districts on a whole have not been intentional in their planning to address these 7 key areas. When there's intentionality, you can begin and you stick to the plan and you hold people accountable, you can begin to see the changes, right? But we don't make a plan and then stick to it long enough and hold folks accountable long enough for whatever reason, changes in leadership. You know, we just don't like the new flavor of the day. Whatever it is, these things are happening. And so it's all about how do we transform by creating those plans and sticking to them because they are our priorities.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think I think you make a really
Mhm.
good point there. When you say have a plan and stick to it, and be intentional, I think a key part to the Flood Center is this piece around what we call a framework for change.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
this is where those 7 key areas that I highlighted earlier, we for the entire state, for all the school districts across the state, every single year we prepare what we call equity profiles that
Okay.
pretty
Yes.
much outlines where each of our school districts are plotted against
Mhm.
all of
Mhm.
those measures. Some of those things, yes, are in their control. Some of those things are outside of their control.
Right.
However, with intentionality, they can begin to make progress. And so, one thing that we have done across some school districts in our state is partnered with them to start to evaluate
Yep.
the framework for change against those equity profiles and
Oh,
say, okay, let's choose one. Let's choose one to attack that's outlined in your strategic plan already. Let's just choose one. And what you begin to find is like when you begin to address
Just one.
you begin to see a shift
Mm.
throughout the school district because they are being intentional, paying attention to those things that are educationally sound. When people hear the word equity, it's we often try to make it this complex thing that has a complex definition, but ultimately, in the
And it
day, it's
doesn't.
about it isn't. It's about opportunity and
It
access
does.
and those things that which are educationally sound for children. That's it. That's what it is.
Right. No matter the hue of their skin.
No matter the hue of their skin.
No matter the hue of this, right?
Yeah.
And with those, I'm excited. I've gone through some of those equity profiles. It's exciting to know that there are districts that are actually being intentional about using those equity profiles and designating a specific key disparity to focus in on, because you can begin to see change as they all intersect in some way, shape, or form. When I think about, the access and looking at the exclusionary discipline practices and overrepresentation in special education, I think about the multi-tiered system of support, and it is not just one simple period of the day. Oh, we're going to go to the MTSS period. It's the way we operate as a whole. And when we use that multi-tiered system of approach support, and we look at the discipline, and we're looking at the attendance, and we're looking at the academic achievement, and we're looking at the proficiency, and we're looking at every single aspect, we are looking at meeting the needs of every single child, right? So if we could just put these things in place and be intentional about how we're holding folks accountable, we will begin to see change.
Mhm.
I can't
I
minimize the strength of these. Mhm.
you really can't, and that's the piece that's maddening a little bit, is because no matter the year, the disparity is the disparity. And at what
Yes.
point are we truly going to, um are we truly gonna focus on what is important to truly, create a thriving environment for students and for the educators who care for them each and every day?
Mhm. 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 Well, thank you for talking a bit about, the landscape we're working within, K-16 education here in the United States. I would love to now jump into the Color of Education Summit, the annual summit. And before we dive in, since it's around the corner, I would absolutely love for you to give our audience, let's say, a 30-second promotional for the upcoming summit. Include the date, the time, the location.
Okay, I
Okay.
can do that. I can do.
All right, go.
We really hope to see you at this year's 2025 Color of Education, where we're going to talk about preserving our legacy, the power in the stories we carry. The event will be October 3rd and 4th at the McKimmon Center. The 3rd is all virtual. So if you're thinking about, oh, I can't go because I can't come in person on the 3rd, you don't have to come in person on the 3rd. The 3rd is virtual. The 4th is when we come together for an all-day, convening where we will have some phenomenal keynotes. Our keynotes for this year's Color of Education are Dr. Eve Ewing, Miss Tara Roberts, and former Secretary John B. King. We hope to see you there on October 3rd and 4th. Tickets are on sale. You can head over to floodcenter.org to purchase your ticket.
Artcenter.org. Hmm. May I repeat that? Floodcenter.org. You know, as they say for the folks in the back.
What's the matter?
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that promotional piece. The color of education every year it just builds on the year before and becomes more powerful. I know in my time participating, as a participant, really, it has been. Oof, I don't even have words to describe. I've done the feedback forms and just overwhelmed with the love, the passion of the presenters, and the amount of knowledge and the breadth that is shared that you leave with because none of us have arrived. There's always something that we can add to our arsenal, and that's what I've loved about the color of education, so I can't wait, for what's going to take place this year. Tell us, how do you hope the summit is going to influence policy, practice, and public awareness in North Carolina and beyond?
I think that's a great question. And I think that was always the impetus of color of education is to lift up the issues in this current moment, come together in community to work together to find solutions, and then not only hear about those solutions, take the solutions that you hear, the tools that you gather, and then actually go apply them in your community. And then the beauty of color of education is that it allows you to come together 3 additional times throughout the year, through another event that we have called Map of the Movement, where you can continue your learning. And so, um, just continue your learning, continue to come together in community because the issues are always changing. And so, coming together once a year just isn't going to prepare us. But
No.
what will prepare us and what we've learned is that if we bring people together intentionally, additional times throughout the year, there is greater ability to sustain yourself, to hold on to hope, that there is possibility that we can overcome despite what's going on around us.
Mhm, mhm. That piece has been particularly powerful for me as well. Sitting in the additional sessions that have kind of taken off from the color of education itself. Having multiple times to get together with like-minded educators and community uh, voices, advocates, has been just an amazing experience. So I did want to plug that because it's not relegated to North Carolina. It's a national convening that happens each time. Folks get together virtually after the actual color of education. And so, thank you for sharing that piece and building that. So are there any particular sessions or topics that tackle longstanding equity challenges? For example, resource inequity or culturally responsive pedagogy?
I think each color of education, we attack all 7 areas that we know are the longstanding inequities because we have to keep those things ever present so that we don't forget about them. And so each
Mhm.
year we're going to address all the presenters will address in some way those 7 key areas that we outlined a bit ago. But I think what will be unique about this year's color of education is how we are bringing in um the arts, how we are bringing in storytelling. Uh because we're in this environment where things are banned, things are canceled, right? But you can't really cancel community. You can't really cancel someone's story because your story is your story. And so at this year's color of education, the beauty of this year and what you'll see weaved into each session are personal and collective narratives. You're going to see how storytelling can be used as a tool for democratic engagement. You're gonna see what it takes to have, like, creative and transformative storytelling practices, and then how we can also think about how do we embed stories into systems and professional practice? Because I don't think we're thinking about that given this moment in time where things seem so charged. There's a lot of fear around us, which is paralyzing us a little bit. And so we want this to be the opportunity to help us push past fear, push past just paralysis, and move into action and using individual, collective stories as that avenue to continue the work forward.
Yes, yes. And that'll allow folks to release the breath
Yes.
because so often we find ourselves holding our breaths and we're not even realizing how we're stifling ourselves. But to have the arts embedded, the storytelling, I think it's going to be absolutely powerful. How does the summit integrate the voices of students, families, and communities, particularly those who are most affected by inequity?
Okay, I love that question. Uh, uh, and the reason why I love that question is because color of education does what the Flood Center, uh, well, pushes on what the Flood Center values. And that's the voice of students, those who are most impacted by everything that we do each and every day. None of us would be here without a student. Like we exist to serve students, right? And so at Color of Education, you will see students presenting. Um, and they will represent the many different hues that are within our schools. So you will see Black students, you will see brown students, you will see white students, you will see Hispanic students, you will see them like represent public education. Yes, you will see them at Color of Education. Many of them leading sessions with adults, many of them leading sessions on their own. We have found that the most impactful sessions that we most often have are those that are led by students. Uh, mhm. You're also going to see educators presenting. We'll have researchers in the space, but a lot of community members in the space. The other group that I love that will present at this year's Color of Education are our elders. We will hear
Oh my God.
the stories from elders, which we don't often pause enough to do.
No.
And so I am very excited about not only the keynotes and what they will bring, but I'm also very excited about those from community. And community, when I say community, it's just not those that are just around me. Community from out of state, community in state, clergy, policymakers. All of us make this thing work, and all of us are needed to make education work. Education is the through line for every other profession, and I think that that's often overlooked, um, and we count it a pleasure and a privilege to be able to bring a true diverse body together to talk about the critical issues of today, impacting education because everything impacts education. Everything
Oh, yes.
impacts
Oh, yes.
education.
Mm, mm. I so see this creating a bridge, um, connecting time to time when you speak about the elders sharing and the youth sharing. It's like you're connecting our past to our future in one moment in time. Uh, I hope that the videos will be archived,
Yes,
uh,
ma'am.
for those who cannot make it, to view it as well. Yeah.
That's why they should just go ahead and buy a virtual ticket, because when you buy a virtual ticket, you can go back and watch it and have access to the material for a while. So I would encourage you to register.
What are some of the metrics or indicators that you use or would like to use to measure progress toward educational equity? And how can educators, policymakers, and community members track whether things are actually improving?
Mhm.
We do so much, but how do we know it's making a dent?
We know that it is making a dent when
Mhm.
those who are leading in those spaces, students who are um, going to buildings every day where everybody has a sense of belonging and thriving. Like that's a simple metric, but critical in my mind. I think another metric is this one around teacher recruitment and retention, specifically of a diverse educator workforce, because the data is clear. The data says having only one educator of color in your K-12 experience changes your lifetime outcomes. Not just like your not just like your K-12 experience, it changes your lifetime outcomes. So imagine, and this isn't just for Black and brown students, it's especially important for them, yes. But that stat stands true and rings true for every child. Every child.
Yes.
Um, and so that's a metric that we should track. And then the other metric that we should track, because I think is critically important, are the discipline disparities. We need to start to see a decrease in discipline disparities. And those are things such as expulsions, suspensions, um, any time out of class is a time when a child isn't learning. So, what is it that we can do where we are giving um, everyone the tools that they need to support students um, in ways that are not exclusionary?
Yeah. That takes sincere time investment. I recall working in a district where the discipline disparities became a priority because there was no choice. But the whole community came together and designed a, a code of conduct. And so instead of an automatic 10-day suspension for this, 10-day suspension for that, 10-day suspension for this, instead of that, there were levels
Mm.
and there was training that went into helping folks to understand the implications of this new way of being, this new way of approaching discipline. Did it take time? Yes. Did it decrease the number of discipline infractions? Oh, yes. Students got what they needed. They were met where they were, and we just saw a change. We saw a shift.
Mhm.
It wasn't quick, but it happened.
I think, like, to your point there, with things not being quick, but they happen, I think
Yes.
what's ringing true to me or ringing clear to me as you say that is what we are discussing earlier around if it's educationally sound, it's right.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other piece that it pushes on is resource matters. Resource just isn't money. right? All the time. Resource is time. Resource is attention. Resource is intentionality. Resource are human human beings. Resource um, is also materials, quality materials. Um, like those things truly matter, and those are the very things that are being stripped away or not being funded at all in our education system today.
Mm. My heart just went back to a student I recall seeing on a visit while working for the State Department, just assessing the quality of schools. And this child was in a desk, sitting in a desk, middle schooler, in the hallway right outside the classroom. And I spoke to her. I said, "Why are you here?" I can take a pause from this audit, right? Like, why are you here? And in the sweetest way possible, with tears in her eyes, she just didn't understand why. She couldn't explain why. She was old enough to articulate, but she couldn't explain why. How can we allow this to happen? Any time away from instruction is not helping.
Mm-mm.
So whether they're excluded by suspension or excluded just by being sent to the office, we have to wrap our minds around why this is our go-to and how do we shift the mindset so that's no longer our first option, right?
Right.
Truly understanding how are we excluding the myriad ways we exclude, and really exploring that piece so we can get to the root of why do I as an educator do that,
Mhm.
and then we can fix it,
Right.
right?
Right. Start with self first, evaluate self, and then look at who are we excluding the most?
Right, right, right. Yet another level, another layer. How can educators, parents, and community leaders who are not in formal leadership roles contribute more effectively to equity work? We have families that listen. How can they contribute more effectively?
Um, I think that's a great question. I just think it's being available to contribute where you are and as you can, because that's community, right? We come together to help those who need it. And we have to begin to explore how we are defining community and look at that in new and unique ways so that we show up and are and can represent for students what they can be
Mhm, mhm.
in community, excuse me, what they can be. And when they see you, they can,
Yes.
that instills some type of aspiration of, oh,
Yes.
they care about me. So I probably better show up differently today. They
Right.
care about me. And oh, I see him in my local store. So I'm going to represent myself a little bit better. So I think
Yeah.
it's showing up as you can, getting involved. Um, I think there's this I know that there's this passage that sticks clear to me that says we must serve the least of those.
Yes.
It doesn't say we get to choose. It says we must serve the least of those. And so we don't have a choice um, to shirk that responsibility. We have to embrace
Yes.
that piece and our school communities. They need us and we need them. because there's so much community wealth that isn't being tapped into. And I know Dr. Flood likes to say, people like to say, "What in the world is happening in schools?" Yes, we need to turn that question around, like, it's not what is happening to schools. School is only getting what the community is sending to it. So what is
Okay.
community doing to make sure that our schools, become better and that they are supporting them? That's the key part
Mhm,
here. I think we have an opportunity in North Carolina that we often are not fully aware of. And that
mhm,
is
mhm.
we are one of a few states that has a constitution that forever guarantees an education. And that only happens when we the people truly embrace that and hold those
Yeah.
who are making policy decisions accountable for what
Mhm,
they swear to uphold, and that is that
mhm.
constitutional right.
Yes. 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 If we could just design goals around how, for school principals, how do we involve the community? Right? For districts, how do we allow principals to involve the community, right? And hold that as a priority as well. It's critical because it can make your life so much easier as a school leader, as a teacher, when the community is involved, when they are entrenched in what's happening day to day at the school,
Yes.
right? I don't think folks really realize it. Even as a principal, I remember there was a whole little mall near the school, and I went into, don't call me crazy, every single store,
Yeah.
every single store, the bodega, the little restaurants, every single one. Spoke to the owners, spoke to the folks working there, spoke to the folks at the cash registers. I said, "Look, you see these kids over here? In these uniforms, you see them, public school, mind you, middle school. I said, when you see them, if they cut up, you need to let me know. Here's the number for the front office. Okay. You come over, you visit. I'll come over. I need you to keep me on speed dial because it works hand in hand. And when I tell you, when they knew they could not go out and cut up or act any way because they had to represent the school and represent their families and represent the community, we took it up several notches. And it doesn't take that much time to just go, meet, greet, introduce, invite.
Mhm.
Show the community they belong to.
Exactly. You can't support what you
Right?
don't know about.
No, no, you cannot. Oh my goodness, this has been so rich. Let's look at some final reflections then. Okay? Because you've given us so much to really reflect on at this point. And so how do you, Dr. Deanna Townsend Smith, stay grounded, inspired, and resilient in doing change work that is often slow and met with resistance?
Mm, good question. I am a woman of faith, so I start there.
Yeah.
Prayer sustains me. Um,
Hmm.
what also keeps me motivated is looking at history and what it tells us to be true. What you said is so accurate in that true change, true change, sustaining change is slow. It is painful because it's slow because you are changing systems.
Hmm.
It's slow because you are changing perspectives, you are changing minds, you're changing hearts. Um, so I think what sustains me are those things, and ultimately knowing that I'm not doing this for me. um, I'm doing this for a child that I know, a child that I don't know.
Mhm.
And I'm doing this because I know what it is like as a Leandro as a Leandro graduate. What it's like not to have true access and opportunity.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for any other child. So what sustains me is seeing a child at the end of this and knowing that our future, our democracy depends on preparing the next generation. And they're brave and they're bold and they inspire me to keep going. So when I think about quitting, I can't, uh, because this is my purpose. It's my purpose, and so no, no,
No, no, because your grandmother said.
yeah.
Mhm. Well, before I do my closing remarks, I just wanted to know, and that's a great note to land on, but if there's anything else you'd like to share before we close out.
The only thing I would share is to say, stay encouraged.
Mhm.
I know it looks bleak, feels hard right now. It feels like we will not get back to some sense of normalcy.
Mhm.
Um, I think, as Dr. Flood says, the greatest motivator is possibility.
Yes.
And we're only going to get there if we keep doing the work. We have to keep doing the work. And that is what matters. And so, as we end here today, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I just want to thank the people who will watch this for tuning in, because I think we all have to keep lifting each other up and participating in spaces or going to those spaces where we can find joy, where we can find community to keep sustaining ourselves today, tomorrow, and forever. So just thank you.
Mhm. Oh, I appreciate that. I know our listening audience will receive that um, from you. And so Dr. Townsend Smith has a heart that desires for educational leaders to be well equipped to meet the diverse needs of students and educators across this nation. She uses her experiences to advocate for others, mentor emerging leaders, and elevate equity focused solutions that drive meaningful change. She believes deeply in giving back, and our listeners can follow her example of giving by supporting the annual Color of Education Summit or sewing into the mission and vision of the Dudley Flood Center for Educational Equity and Opportunity. If you believe in the importance of professional growth opportunities for teachers, educational leaders, and community advocates, your giving will be on good soil with dividends that will extend beyond our time together on this side of the earth. Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith.
Thank you.
And thank you to our audience for joining the MTIP podcast today, where we are making the impossible possible.